This is Morning Perfect Bass. I am Van Velding, and I'm going to work a little bit on my bass every day. And after a few weeks, probably a couple months actually, I'm going to see how much progress I've made. I am also going to talk about the news a little bit while I'm doing this. I am up here so that I can get a good view of my bass, just see all the changes. I probably don't realize the changes as much as you might, simply because I do occasionally work on this whenever I'm not recording. Or I should say I'm not recording every time I work on this. I love that open pit on the left above the chest because it's just where the ceiling gets rid of the ground. That's just where the ceiling of the storage room comes out. Kind of low on dirt. So I'm going to take down this wall. I'm clearing out the 4 blocks. This is going to be my village area. And there's going to be a central structure there on the right. And I'm going to clear out 4 flat blocks away from it. 1 block of sidewalk, 1 block of fencing, 2 blocks of grass. And I'm going to put some doors on that. I believe I'm going to put some doors on the inside. I'm not 100% on that. And there's going to be a market on the inside. I'm just going to tear down these 4 walls out and get that done. If I have enough time, I'm going to start on the interior of the village and possibly the stairs, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to get to the stairs. So this leading article is an article about a guy infiltrating a white supremacist meeting in Seattle. Always out of pickaxes, man. It's actually a disappointing article. We don't learn anything about Nazis except that they're middle class and a disturbing number of them are young, tech-savvy men, and there's one guy of Indian descent. But one of the things these articles tend to emphasize is the alleged normalcy of white supremacism. It's always been comfortable for us to think that racists are cartoon ignorant Southerners or blue-collar workers for old people. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. That has been annoying me for a while. I just haven't been motivated enough to get the dirt to patch up the ground. I don't even know why that... Oh, I know why that wood is down there. Okay. That's just where I was marking out the perimeter where the inside ends and then where the fence begins. Anyway, so if there's one thing you take away from this era of American politics that's not survival skills, it is the face of the educated 20-something khaki and polo shirt, white-collar, white supremacist. This cell, yeah, it's a cell, was operating under an educated, upper-class philosophy professor and homosexual Dr. Greg Johnson. When they organized their meeting, they told the venue they were a book club. And if you're the person who owns a meeting hall, you know, some guys tell you they're having a book club. They give you some money, you give them a time slot, and as long as they clear out by the time the quilting circle gets there at 7 p.m., you don't care, right? So these guys tell everyone that they're a book club. They identify each other with obscure white supremacist literature, and they talk strategy. It is exactly what you expect. They plan on continue getting punched in the face because they want the media to sympathize with them. Because they know the media is willing to sympathize with white supremacists. They don't use ethnic slurs in public because the public doesn't respond well to it. If they have members that cannot be open, then they can be a secret agent, which is exactly what it sounds like. They recite their company's values, wherever they work, about diversity and stuff. But they continue moving up the hierarchy, and they continue to deny people of color and women and gay people rights and opportunities and employment. That is how white supremacists work. The sad fact is that if good people don't strive to attain positions of higher power, folks with an agenda will, and nothing fuels an agenda like naked self-interest. Hierarchical power structures are prone to being filled with folks strongly motivated to shape the world in their image. We'd like to imagine that there's a cap on how much they can achieve if they're working a job at cross purposes with their ideology, but it's not that simple. I've worked for a lot of companies, And the thing I've learned is that companies work like the mafia. In the mafia, there's associates and there's made men. Soldatos, technically, I think. But made man's better. And in jobs like retail or food service, you are an associate. When you first work an office job, you're an associate. Administrative support, associate. You're only a made man once you're trusted. Then your only risk for a real premeditated fuck up, or if the organization itself is in major trouble, you're risk-free. Obviously, being liked is being trusted. So once folks in power know and like you, whether that person in power is a manager or an owner, you are in. What am I doing? The fuck am I doing? Fucking doors. Yes, doors. Doors. I'm making iron doors because another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to seal the village off because it's kind of open right now, and I'm going to put those doors on there so that villagers can't leave. I got to block up a hole and stuff like that. So, being trusted can also be your dedication to the company. Going to optional company events, engaging with company bullshit, sucking up to the boss, singing happy birthday at birthday parties. Maybe not that last one, but pretending like your job is your life, or actually making your job your life, is a pretty good way to be a made man. Maybe being good at your job is protection, and I'm sure there exists companies where a manager will choose to fire their work friends over someone who's performing a lot of work. But my experience has been that companies are comfortable half-assing any job if given the choice between losing their friends and losing the guy who makes half of the job's ass. And most of us don't want to do that, at least. I can still make pressure plates with stone. It's been a while. It's been a while since I made a pressure plate. I think that's consistent with what I've been making. Stylistically for this. If I want a consistent style, and I can just come back later and revise that if I want to change the style. But slim odds, I like the style and I keep it as is. Anyway, most of us don't want to do that for at least the reason that we don't ever expect that kind of emotional, moral, or temporal support. Goodbye, loyal pathway. We don't expect reciprocation for that from companies. And we shouldn't. I mean, look, retail and fast food managers don't have the power to make made men. They are not even made men unless they're franchise owners. There is no emotional, moral, or temporal cost for white supremacists, though. Their lives are the accumulation of power and using that power to hurt other people, to hurt other Americans. I'm going to consult my notes just a second here. Yeah, they have to suck it up and work with people they hate, and some of them aren't very good at it, and it's easy to laugh at them because they've stumbled, from the path of conventional success, the same as anyone society derides for being poor or underemployed or unsuccessful. It's easy to make fun of white supremacists when we can imagine they're losers. It is much more difficult to flirt with the possibility that they are successful people, that they're thriving, that they're powerful, that our society, a society we would like to think is flawed but ultimately fair and just, to think of that society as a place where virulent supremacists can be successful, where they can thrive. But what if the powerful don't exercise power based on reason or the common good or even logical economic self-interest? What if we don't reward people for merit, but for performative work which serves as a pretext for their advancement based on social conformity and the obedience that it implies? What if our society is a mass of associates doing the work while made men sit in offices pushing paper, taking their cut, and glad-handing until they retire or it all falls apart? I'm cutting the inside of the village here now, so I got to consult my notes a lot. I apologize. I might cut this, I might not. Depends on how much I can cut my speech while I'm consulting my notes. Anyway, to get back to the point, what if people who hate America, like Nazis and white supremacists, appropriate our common benchmarks of good citizenship? Khakis, haircuts, literature, philosophy, middle-class jobs. The entire point of white supremacy is the notion that the totality of a person's character, your character, is determined at a glance or by your name. It's numerology for people who can't even do the math in numerology. If we as a group have allowed ourselves to judge the worth of our fellow Americans, our compatriot Americans, our co-citizens, our shipmates in this social barge, our peers, if we have judged the totality of their character by their clothes, their haircuts, their jobs, their hobbies, then we just don't shortchange a lot of good people. We long change some really shitty ones. And they know that because that's where they live, in that surface level judgment. Anyway, it feels good to get it all out. The second article it's an NPR article about how right-wing hate groups are recruiting children online. Like, I'm the guy who says that the lack of social connections are a serious problem in our culture right now, and I suggest Bowling Alone: The Collapse and Revival of the American Community by Robert E. Putnam. And if you do read it, let me know how it is, because I have not read it. And people will seek out those connections, and they'll do it in the safe environment of the internet, and they will take the easiest and the best ones. It is hard to get different opinions in those damned little internet bubbles, and that's an ideal breeding ground for white supremacy. Cynical arguments to self-interest are always self-evident, and if children don't have the tools to counter them, and most don't, which is a whole other thing which I'm 100% sure to rant about in the future, then those are the arguments they'll accept. The article goes into depth saying the things that folks need to be reminded about when it comes to white supremacy on the internet. They target people who are unhappy. They scapegoat minorities for those people's problems. The solution is always to link people's problems to the groups they want to hate. And of course, there are the slurs. They use slurs as a joke. At first to feel out potential contacts, and then if the response isn't negative, they move forward. Yeah, imagine that. Racial slurs are used by white supremacists to recruit people to white supremacy. That is an excellent reason to believe anyone using them is a white supremacist. And the best way to get people to believe you're a white supremacist, I said to not believe instead of to believe you're not. What the heck is with the script? I think I did wrong here. Yep. Yeah, I did wrong here. I totally missed that there was another column there that was kind of cut down already. So everything needs to be shifted to the right. So I hope you like watching me dig a slightly more. That is an excellent reason to believe anyone using them is a white supremacist, and the best way to get people to believe you're not a white supremacist, as the white supremacists pointed out earlier, is not to use or accept slurs in public or in private, because white supremacists will use them in any venue they are acceptable in order to recruit white supremacists, whose end goal, I gotta remind you here, is to remove the rights of American citizens and to kill many, many of those citizens. And there's the codes too. The 14, which is a reference to a white supremacist mantra about securing the future for white folks, and the 88, which is a reference to Hitler, what with H being the eighth letter of the alphabet. This article was not as disappointing as the last one, which reads like slightly more informatively than a bad date article. It still kind of sucks though. They mentioned that video games are like $1 billion industry, apropos of like nothing. And the personal story they slap on at the end has the kid going to church of his own volition, and it's cited as a sign that he is moving away from being a white supremacist. And could someone tell NPR about the long historical roots between white supremacists and churches? Could someone do that for me, please? Just call NPR and let them know. All right. I feel like I went through that one pretty quickly. What do we got? Oh my God, the unconstitutional amendment appointment. Matthew Whitaker. I mean, you know, I try not to talk about the Trump administration. I try not to talk about them. I never want to. It shouldn't dominate the news cycle, but let me give you the bullet points and then break it down. I'm going to make the skylight here because I think I'm putting doors in here, and part of doors spawning villagers is having light come in front of those doors. So if I do put doors in here, I'm going to want the skylight. It's on the plan. It's on the plans as why. It's why I'm making the skylight. Okay. So let me see. The bullet points of this are: fired the attorney general who had recused himself from the Russian investigation, unconstitutionally hired an attorney general who has stated he would shut down the Russian investigation, lied about a reporter mischaracterizing an aide's attempt to force a mic away from him and then barring him from the White House, posting a doctor video of that aide's failed attempt to force a mic from the reporter to try to support their lies about an assault. This is written on a Friday, so that I'm sure by the time I read, record, edit, and post this, we will already be talking about whether or not the shooting of American citizens can be justified if a rookie ICE agent thought they looked a little Mexican-y. But here we go. The firing of Jeff Sessions is obviously one step on a road by the president to shut down an investigation into whether or not he colluded with the Russians in the 2016 election. Did his campaign work with a representative of the Russian government to gain assistance in beating Hillary Clinton in Trump's bid to become president? There is a mantra reasonable people use to describe how Trump supporters handle negative press against the president. He didn't say that. If he did, you didn't understand it. If you did, he didn't mean it. And if he did, it's not a big deal. And if it is, others have said or done worse. You have to overcome 5 levels of denial from his supporters to make any point. So let's just head this off. Other countries shouldn't be interfering in our elections because money equals free speech is part of our law. Countries can use that free speech to affect our elections on a scale that regular citizens cannot. The big dealness of this seems self-evident, but having non-citizens weigh in on elections undermines our right of self-determination and removes power from the American people, with, empowering the American people being the bedrock principle of this country. That's not acceptable in any way. Also bad is the fact that we often compete with other countries, if you hadn't heard that drivel out of the president's lips lately. Other countries are a threat to us. They would love to undermine us, to establish power over us, or to deprive us of resources for us to distribute in a way that we think is best. We often oppose other countries, even allies, on a variety of issues, and the only motivation for a country to sink massive resources into affecting our government is to gain an advantage at a cost to us. I'm going to just go back and all caps that. The only motivation for a country to sink massive resources into affecting our government is to gain an advantage at a cost to us. For a group of assholes who have a hair trigger on imprisoning Hillary Clinton for a terrorist attack and an IT failure, these people are wet powder when it comes to collusion with the foreign government. The notion that anyone has done anything on the scale of the actions that we suspect and that Mueller is investigating is ridiculous. The Trump campaign's alleged Russian collusion is unprecedented, and no one has done anything on that scale before. We should punish people who do this because, and maybe I'm the one on crazy pills here, American politicians should not be selling themselves to Russia or any other country to get the money and the intelligence they need to get themselves elected. It is bad. No one has done anything worse than what the Trump campaign allegedly did. And all that's left is to determine whether or not his campaign did it, whether he authorized it, and what we're going to do about it. So Attorney General Jeff Sessions handed in his resignation as requested. Sessions has recused himself from the Russian investigation. This has instanced the president since he wanted to use the power of his office to quash the investigation. He wanted to use the power of his office illegally to quash the investigation. All right, I can't go on. I don't have time. I'll catch you later.